Hollywood's most glamorous stars and other low scoundrels are banding together to battle new anti-abortion laws in states they heard of once but never actually believed existed. The stars say it's appalling that these laws forbid abortion even in cases of rape, incest, or a producer knocking up some starlet on the casting couch and then having to actually give her the part he promised her because otherwise she might give birth and sue him for child support. Hollywood producer Fairly Scabrous, in a statement made to the three mirrors in his walk-in closet, said, quote, "Hollywood has the best moral compass because it has compassion." Those are the immortal words spoken by Harvey Weinstein as he was trying to get Roman Polanski off the hook for raping a 13-year-old girl. And of course, we no longer support Harvey because he can't greenlight a picture anymore, but I'm speaking symbolically about all the Harvey Weinsteins who are still out there and could end up in prison if any of these abortion laws go into effect and make it impossible for them to deny they did what they obviously did. Unquote. Studio executive Deeply Scabrous, no relation to Fairly, issued a statement from an undisclosed location saying, quote, "It's a woman's right to choose to get her employer out of a jam by disposing of the evidence before his wife finds out how he's been casting his pictures," unquote. Film star Holly Vacant told reporters she would be boycotting anti-abortion states like Georgia and instead will film her next movie in Northern Ireland, where abortion is almost completely illegal, but her bosses get big tax breaks. Ms. Vacant said this is not hypocritical because boycotting Georgia will sound virtuous so she can continue to get work, whereas boycotting Northern Ireland might cost the studios money and thus make her unemployable. Anti-abortion states say they're sorry to lose Hollywood's business, but at least now the local women will be safe. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, dipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Sohrab Amari of the New York Post, who was a guest on this show, launched an attack on National Review Never-Trumper David French, also a guest on the show, which has now become a wild debate between right-wingers on whether or not we're fighting for a free and open society or just trying to crush our political enemies, see them driven before us, and hear the lamentations of their women. Amari says that David French, who disapproves of Trump on grounds of character as well as other grounds, is trying to beat the left while accepting the left's idea that autonomy, personal choice, is the highest value. In other words, French wants to preserve the idea of absolute freedom of individual action that the left has used to chase God from the public square, persecute Christian cake bakers, and to infest our school with destructive ideas about sexuality. Amari writes, quote, "Progressives understand that culture war means discrediting their opponents and weakening or destroying their institutions. Conservatives should approach the culture war with a similar realism. Civility and decency are secondary values. They regulate compliance with an established order and orthodoxy. We should seek to use these values to enforce our order and our orthodoxy, not pretend that they could ever be neutral. To recognize that enmity is real is its own kind of moral duty." Amari suggests that government action may be needed to fight the culture war with the aim of defeating the enemy and enjoying the spoils in the form of a public square reordered to the common good and ultimately the highest good. French strikes back and says his philosophy includes the consistent and unyielding defense of civil liberties, including the civil liberties of your political opponents, both in law and in culture. That means defending the legal rights of a radical leftist professor with the same vigor that you defend an embattled Christian conservative. And if you despise corporate censorship and corporate efforts to punish dissent, that means supporting not just libertarian Googlers who question Silicon Valley orthodoxy, but also kneeling football players who use the national anthem as an occasion for public protest. Who's right? You've come to the only place that has all the answers. Every single one. I'll give them to you in just a second. But first, I can now tell you, these Ring doorknobs work great. On Saturday, I went to see my pal, Jonathan Hay, who works here. I have no idea what he does, but he has some job here at the Daily Wire. And he has these Ring security all over his home. And I rang the doorbell, and he can see me on a Ring doorbell. He can see me right on his phone and communicate with me right on his phone, no matter where he is. And he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "To smoke your cigars and drink your scotch." And he wouldn't open the door. So this Ring really works very well. Their mission is to make neighborhoods safer. You might already know about their smart video doorbells and cameras that protect millions of people everywhere. Ring helps you stay connected to your home anywhere in the world. So if there's a package delivery surprise visitor, you'll get an alert and be able to see hear, and speak to them all from your phone. That's thanks to the HD video and two-way audio features on Ring devices. And as a listener, you have a special offer on a Ring starter kit available right now with a video doorbell and the motion-activated floodlight cam. The starter kit has everything you need to start building a ring of security around your home. Just go to ring.com/Klavan. That's ring.com/Klavan. And if I show up at your door, you'll be able to say, wait a minute, you're the one I wanted to ask. How do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. Hey, I'm also thrilled to tell you that I finished, almost killed me, I finished the third novel in the Another Kingdom series, which will become the third podcast in Another Kingdom and the end of the trilogy. It's great. And it was incredibly exhausting, but I will show it to my wife, and then she'll give me some notes, and then I'll tell her that she's wrong about everything, and then I'll do everything she said. There should be a way to shorten that process, but I can't figure out what it is. So listen, I am always unhappy to see right-wingers fighting. I think our opponents are so bad, so crazy, so vicious in the way they fight that we should be united and not fight each other personally, certainly. We should debate ideas, no question about it, but we should stay off each other personally. So I want to say at the top of this that I thought Sohrab Amari did the wrong thing. His article was in First Things, and he called it Against David Frenchism. And that's not the way we should be having debates. It really is not. It really matters. It really matters because and then later he said, oh, well, I was just going after his ideas. Fine, but there are ideas that David maintains that you can attack in general, even quoting him, even saying he's one of the people you disagree with, without labeling it David Frenchism, which immediately makes it personal. And the fight, of course, on Twitter immediately became very stupid and very personal. And he included things like he said at one point, this is in this article in First Things. He says, it isn't easy to critique the persona of someone as nice as French. Then again, it is in part that earnest and insistently polite quality of his that I find unsuitable to the depth of the present crisis facing religious conservatives, which is why I recently quipped on Twitter that there is no polite David Frenchian third way around the cultural civil war. And I totally disagree with this. I've known plenty of nice people that you can't get around with that you can't dig up with a backhoe, and it's part of this kind of fake. I'm not accusing Amari of this, but I think that idea is part of this fake macho stuff that has grown up on the right. I hate this stuff. I hate this talk about alpha males and so forth. Alpha male is a category of ape. I have known many a wimpy little guy who can stand like an absolute pillar of stone when he is assaulted and attacked for his opinions and his beliefs. And I've known many tough, guys that I wouldn't want to go toe-to-toe with in an alley who collapse the minute there's social pressure against them. And yet they seem like alpha males if you're judging in ape terms. Integrity, rock solid integrity comes in all kinds of shapes, all kinds of forms, and all kinds of people. And you can be incredibly nice and polite and incredibly immovable when it comes to matters of principle. And human life is far, far too complicated to be judged on ape terms. And I just hate that faux macho stuff that grows up on the right about this. But they do have philosophical differences and differences of position. I have said before, and I said it when he was here on the show, I feel French's horror at Donald Trump's character is overblown, and I feel that it is actually a problem. I think it's a problem for right-wingers to have guys, he's hard, he's a devoted evangelical Christian. French is absolutely horrified that evangelical Christians are supporting a guy who raw dogs porn stars and is cheating on his wife and does all this. And he said, one of the reasons I invited him on the show was he said that alone would cause me never to vote for him. My problem with this is that let me show you the opposition. The candidates, the Democrat candidates were in California talking to the California Democratic Convention, one of them being, of course, John Hickenlooper, who was the former governor of Colorado. And here's the welcome he got from the California Democrats as he warned them against socialism.
If we want to beat Donald Trump and achieve big progressive goals, socialism is not the answer. I was reelected in a purple state in 2014, one of the worst years for Democrats in a quarter century. I was We shouldn't try to achieve universal coverage by removing private insurance from over 150 million Americans. We should not try to tackle climate change by guaranteeing every American a government job. Hold on. As the Democratic Party, we have to create a vision for this country. I want to give Americans a reason to look forward to tomorrow.
He's being booed for opposing socialism. When that is the opponent, when that is your opponent, you do, arguing about whether Trump slept with somebody, to me, is jejune. It's ridiculous. That is not the important thing. You want to dislike his character, you want to condemn the things he did, fine. But the fact is, if you had to choose as a matter of character between John McCain and Donald Trump, I would choose John McCain. But John McCain was a lousy senator, and Trump has so far been a pretty good president. I think a very good president in some ways, and I think that that's what we hired them to do. Some people are not nice people, and yet they do a good job, and this is what we hired him to do. He's not our daddy, he's not our pal. And the thing is, people always reference Hitler. If you don't know your history, Adolf Hitler was a man made completely out of straw that people used to beat each other's political opponents with. But there was also another Adolf Hitler that people don't know, who was an actual real human being and a psychopath who led a country into World War and nearly wiped out an entire race of people, and was actually one of the great villains in history. And people, when he rose up to fight the communists, there were a lot of people who said, well, he is a vulgarian and he is awful, but we've got to use him to fight the communists. And people compare that to Donald Trump. The people who hated Hitler as a vulgarian hated him for the wrong reason. He wrote a book saying, I am a fascist. I believe in destroying your democracy. I believe in destroying Jewish people. I believe in starting a war. He wrote a book. He said he was going to do it, and then he did what he did. That was the reason you opposed Hitler, and Trump has done none of those things. He represents none of those things. Outside of left-wing media, none of that is in Trump's agenda. He's just a business guy who wants this country to work like a business in a competitive fashion. He has done a good job in that, and he's also a vulgarian. He is. There's no question about it. So their argument, so French is wrong about that. I mean, Amari is wrong to personalize this. French is wrong in his. He's too delicate about Trump's faults. Hey, let me talk to you first for a minute about Big Token, because I love this. This is a new app that lets you share data about yourself, your interests and habits, and then get paid for it. Because right now, your data is going to all these companies, and you're paying them to take it from you. So here is Big Token, which will help you with that and turn that around. Here's how it works. You download the app, you sign up for a free Big Token account, and next, complete actions to earn points. You can answer surveys, check into locations, connect your social accounts, and more, and then you can redeem your points for rewards such as cash and gift cards, or donate your earnings to charity. You choose what data you share with Big Token and then get paid for it. You can also get more points for referring friends and family. Your data is always secure in Big Token. Based on the data you choose to share, you will be placed into specific ad groups, and brands will buy access to those ad groups for use in personal advertising. And the best part, you get paid. If you want to start earning money for your data, go to the App Store or Google Play, search for Big Token, BIGTOKEN, that's one word, download the app and sign up. Make sure you use my referral code Klavan. Again, search Big Token in the App Store or Google Play, download the app, and use my referral code Klavan to sign up. Claim your data and get paid, and find out how to spell Klavan. And maybe they'll even pay you for that. It's Klavan. So Amari supports Trump, saying, with a kind of animal instinct, Trump understood what was missing from mainstream Frenchian conservatism. His instinct has been to shift the cultural and political mix ever so slightly away from autonomy, above all, toward order, continuity, and social cohesion. He believes that the political community, and not just the church, family, and individual, has its own legitimate scope of action. He believes it can help protect the citizen from transnational forces beyond his control. And French's answer to that was, Donald Trump wouldn't even fully grasp what that paragraph means, much less recognize it as a governing philosophy. He's a man of prodigious personal appetites, a man who proudly hangs a Playboy cover on the wall of his office, a man who marries and then marries again and again, yet still feels compelled to find porn stars to bed. In his essay, Amari condemns the man who claims autonomy above all else. He is, without knowing it, condemning Trump. So this, to me, is a kind of minor part of this argument. One person on Twitter condemned French for condemning Trump's infidelities because French enjoys Game of Thrones and there are naked women in Game of Thrones. That's how absurd the debate goes. I personally condemn David French for looking a lot like me and yet occasionally disagreeing with me, which I find just incredibly confusing. How am I supposed to know what I think if a guy who looks just like me disagrees with me? But here's where I think both of them are wrong, and the important stuff they're wrong about. French is right about this. If we're not fighting for American freedom, if we're not fighting for a pluralistic society where the person we disagree with has just as much right to speak as we do, we are not fighting for anything. If government action, look, every one of the founders said our Constitution only works for religious people. If we are no longer religious, I've said this before, we've already lost. You cannot chain people to their freedom. You cannot force them to believe in God, not our God, not the Christian God. You cannot force them to believe in that God. And so we really are fighting for, plurality. We're fighting for everybody to have the ability to speak. And Amari is wrong. If you stop fighting for that, you're not fighting for anything. You are no longer fighting for the political fruit of Christian belief. Look, the moral consensus has collapsed. In the 50s, we had more or less a moral consensus, what was right, what the good life looked like. There were people who dissented and they were allowed to dissent, but we had a moral consensus. When that consensus collapses, right, you have to rebuild it. French is right. You have to rebuild it through the culture because you cannot force it on people without losing the purpose of what you're doing. And the reason is we're the good guys. We fight for different things than the bad guys. The bad guys are not saying they're in favor of abortion. They're saying you, in your state, cannot pass a law against abortion. We're not fighting to outlaw abortion. We are fighting for the right to outlaw abortion in our state. It is a very, very different thing. I'm not fighting for conservative news, but for fair news. I don't want there to be conservative news. I'm happy for the press to go after Donald Trump if for 8 years they also went after Obama. They didn't. They don't. It's unfair. That's not the press I want. But it's a different fight. They're fighting to control the news. I'm fighting to have the news be fair. Those are two different things. And French is right. Culture is the only answer. You cannot force people to be free. You cannot force people to love their freedom. Pardon me. But French is wrong in that he does not understand that force has already come into play. Force has already been used. And Amari's right about this. They have used the principle of autonomy to chase God out of the public square. The federal government has no right to come into a local courthouse and say they can't put the 10 Commandments there. The ACLU should not be able to frighten people with lawsuits. They should be able to frighten people with lawsuits, but the people should know that those lawsuits will fail when they say you've got to take prayer out of school. That's absurd. Look, the federal government's purpose is to preserve individual autonomy, but local governments and community governments have more sway because people can move and people live in those governments and have more direct control over those governments. That was the point. The closer the government is to you, the more power it can have. So a community can say, yeah, we're not going to allow cross-dressers to use the opposite bathrooms. And Barack Obama should have no say in what they do in that community. That was the purpose of our Constitution. And French is wrong to not understand how violently and completely the left has taken over the culture in those terms by stacking the court with people who say, well, yeah, you had an idea and that idea might become a product and you might sell that product into another state. So your idea is regulated by interstate trade. You know, what's his name? Bret Stephens, who is Amari's mentor but disagrees with him, right? He wrote a piece kind of attacking Amari for all this. But Bret Stephens was one of the guys who pointed out that we who operate under the First Amendment are protected a lot of times from the regulatory tyranny and the social tyranny of the left. And the left has used every means at its disposal to shut us up. I don't want to shut them up. But I do want to shuck off those chains that they have put on, the mental chains of political correctness, the chains of blacklisting that have completely cleared Hollywood of conservatives and the universities of conservatives. David French has fought heroic battles to allow Christians, heroic legal battles, to allow Christians to continue to speak in universities. But what good are those battles when you can't get hired as a Christian at a university? You can't get hired as a conservative as a university. Donald Trump became necessary because the left has not played fair. That is the point. They have not played fair. And the answer to that is not, oh, now we'll not play fair. The answer to that is to fight them back with force with political force, not physical force, but with political force in the places where they have not been fair. It's not fair. It's not American that the EPA can decide that your swimming pool is a public waterway, then arrest you for swimming in it, then try you, then put you in prison without any reference to due process or any other court outside of the EPA. Those are the regulations that need to be destroyed with force. Those are the things that need to be destroyed with force. Blacklisting, the keeping the federal government telling people whether they can have the 10 Commandments in their schools. All of these things have to be absolutely crushed, and they can only be crushed by somebody like Donald Trump, who has the raw boorishness to not be deterred by being called racist every single day. Show me the other Republican politician who can stand up to that kind of abuse all the time, and I will vote for him. Just show me the guy who will stand up and spit in their eye the way Trump does, and I won't support Trump anymore. But if it takes supporting a guy like Trump to stop them from the absolutely brutal oppression of free speech, the throwing you off Twitter, where are the suits against Twitter? Hopefully the DOJ is looking at Google, but all of these places where we have been banned from the public square, where our ideas have been chased out by federal power instead of letting local governments decide, instead of letting schools decide how they will be run. Those are the places where we need more ferocity to fight back. But what we're not fighting for is we're not fighting for the right to chase them out. I think that Amari is utterly wrong about that. He was accused of wanting a theocracy, and people said, oh, you're just saying that because he was an Iranian, now converted to Catholicism. But no, that is where he was going. He's going eventually, if you use the government to coerce the public square, to recognize the federal government to coerce the public square to the highest good, eventually you are going to have a theocracy. If you live in San Francisco and you want transvestites reading to your kids in the library, that's San Francisco. That's fine. But if you live in another place and in Nashville and you don't want that, the left should not be able to come there and sue you and force you to have your community live up to San Francisco standards. That's why I so oppose what Hollywood is doing on this abortion debate. Not because they don't have the right to their opinion. They live in California. Let them live in California. Let Georgians live in Georgia. Some of this brings me to this amazing William Barr interview that I didn't get a chance to talk about because I'm not on Fridays. What an amazing interview with CBS's Jan Crawford, and I have to give her kudos. She really knew what she was doing. She actually understood the case that she was talking to him about the Mueller. He was reacting. This is the Attorney General reacting to the Mueller statement, and Jan Crawford brought up all the Democrat talking points, but she allowed Barr to answer fully and say what he had to say. And it was a good interview because New York Magazine ran a piece by Jonathan Chait, the leftist writer. In terrifying interview, William Barr goes full MAGA. Basically, this is the left's attitude to William Barr and toward all of us. This is cut number 13.
Just a few things that I want to tell you. When we first met,
No, don't speak. Please don't speak. Please don't speak. No, go. Go, gentle Scorpio, go. Your Pisces wishes you every happy return.
Just one.
Don't speak!
That's the left toward all of us, but certainly to Attorney General Barr. Barr was asked about investigating the investigators. He has now started an inquiry into how this FBI look at Donald Trump got started, and he gave his reasons. This is cut number 8.
Like many other people who are familiar with intelligence activities, I had a lot of questions about what was going on, and I assumed I'd get answers when I went in, and I have not gotten answers that are at all satisfactory, and in fact have probably more questions, and that some of the facts that I've learned don't hang together with the official explanations of what happened.
What do you mean by that?
That's all I really will say. Things are just not jiving.
And he went on to say that he thought there was timeline problems. When did people find out that there was no Russian collusion and all this? But he wouldn't go on and tell the details. But that seems fair to me, and it seems amazing. William Barr was so wise and insightful in this interview that he sometimes sounded like me. He said things that you basically hear on this show. We only have this on audio. They wouldn't put it out on video. But this is cut number 9. He talks about how he came into the CIA. It's a long cut, but it's worth listening to, and because it's where I'm coming from as well. He came into the CIA when the press was raving about the CIA investigating peace groups and the FBI investigating peace groups and civil rights groups because they had contact with Russia and they were in contact with the communists and wanted to bring communism here. And so the FBI was investigating, and the press went nuts over that and investigated. And that's when he was in the CIA, Barr. And so he is shocked to find the press suddenly go so quiescent. Here he is.
I joined the CIA almost 50 years ago as an intern, and this was during the Vietnam civil rights era, and there had been a lot of pending investigations of the CIA. And there the issues were, what was it? When was it appropriate for intelligence agencies? The FBI too was under investigation. The penetration of civil rights groups, because at the time there was concerns about contacts with, communist-funded front groups and things like that. And how deeply could you get into civil rights groups or anti-Vietnam War groups? A lot of these groups were in contact with foreign adversaries. They had some contact with front organizations and so forth, and there were a lot of rules put in place, and those rules are under the Attorney General. The Attorney General's responsibility is to make sure that these powers are not used to tread upon First Amendment activity, and that certainly was a big part of my formative years of dealing with those issues. The fact that today people just seem to brush aside the idea that it's okay to engage in these activities against a political campaign is stunning to me, especially when the media doesn't seem to think that it's worth looking into. They're supposed to be the watchdogs of, our civil liberties.
I mean, that is where I'm coming from. The press is supposed to be, this is because we don't know yet what the Obama administration did. We do not know. And so it's entirely possible that they did some things with good intentions and knew what they were doing. It does become, to use Barr's words, appalling when you start to see the bias and the struck page, back and forths. It's just the most appalling thing right now to me is the press which makes a living releasing anonymous sources from the intelligence community now suddenly doesn't want, Barr to declassify information that will tell us what happened. That is just amazing. He goes on to say, he says a lot of things. He says Mueller could have reached a decision, even if the regulations say you can't indict a sitting president. He could have reached a decision on that. And one of my favorite parts, first, just let's put up this. Adam Schiff, that you can just tell how terrified the weasels are. And when I say weasel, I mean my personal congressman, Adam Schiff, who has been a McCarthyite from the beginning, who has just said, I have seen proof of collusion, and he virtually called, in one interview, Trump a Russian asset, and now suddenly he is shocked to find William Barr using the kind of language he is using. This is cut number 1.
You don't talk cavalierly about intelligence agencies or the FBI spying on presidential campaigns. And given how much he misled the country about Mueller's own report and findings, we can sadly expect that given this power to declassify information now, he will do so in a selective way designed to mislead the country in the president's service. And there may be no opportunity for rebuttal this time. There will be no further Mueller report that will set straight this selective declassification that he may put into effect. And the fact that he will say he doesn't want to speculate about what went on early in the investigation, but he's willing to speculate that it was spying, tells you all you need to know about how disingenuous he's being with the country.
What a creep this guy is. This is the guy who said, oh, yes, I have proof, but I can't tell you. But I will tell you, but I can't tell you now. But I have proof. And now he's saying that Barr, who used the word spying, who said it's a perfectly good English word, and it means what happened to Trump. He was spied on. There's no question. They sent people with a wire out to get him, so that he was spied on. And saying we do have to spy on people. We just don't know if they did the right thing. And to have Adam Schiff, the chief McCarthyite on the left, calling that somehow wrong and somehow abusive of language, absolutely absolutely intolerable, just and disgusting. However, Barr was my favorite quote in this whole interview was when Barr was asked about his reputation. The reporter, sorry, I lost her name, Jan Crawford, asked him. She said to him, you've always had a great reputation on the left and right. Why? Because he's a man of integrity. So the left and right has always supported him. But now he's suddenly under attack. I mean, the New Yorker had an absolutely awful cover showing him polishing, shining Donald Trump's shoes. And that's basically what they're talking about now. He's going full MAGA, and this is why he's doing everything. Couldn't possibly be, because he's calling him like he sees it. And she asked him how he feels about his reputation. This was a great quote. This is a 6.
We live in a crazy, hyper-partisan period of time, and I knew that it would only be a matter of time if I was behaving responsibly and calling him as I see him. That I'd be attacked, because nowadays people don't care about the merits or the substance. They only care about who it helps, who benefits, whether my side benefits or the other side benefits. Everything is gauged by politics. And as I say, that's antithetical to the way the department runs. And any attorney general in this period is going to end up losing a lot of political capital, and I realize that. And that's one of the reasons that I ultimately was persuaded that maybe I should take it on, because I think at my stage in life it really doesn't make any difference.
You're at the end of your career? Or?
I'm at the end of my career. But
it's a reputation that you've worked your whole life on, though.
Yeah, but everyone dies, and I'm not, I don't believe in the Homeric idea that, immortality comes by, having odes sung about you over the centuries,
So you don't regret taking the job?
No.
I love it. In other words, I'm going to die. They can't touch me. I don't care what they think of me. I'm going to do the right thing. That is the way we fight this battle. We fight it by doing the right thing fearlessly, and we fight for the right for everyone to do what they think is right, and for communities to form themselves as they see fit, states to govern themselves as they see fit, and the federal government to keep out of it just to protect our liberties. That makes us the good guys. I got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, but come to dailywire.com and subscribe. You can watch the whole show there. You can be in the mailbag. It's uncomfortable in there, but you get to ask questions. I solve all your problems. It's worth a lousy $10 a month, a lousy $100 for the entire year. Plus, we got Michael Knowles coming up. I mean, all right, forget about it. Come over to dailywire.com.